right. Hi, everyone. Hi. I'm really excited to be here today to talk to you all about Salvia Divinorum because it's a plant that many people have experienced one time and, as Stephen was saying, not very well. Okay. Can you hear? Whoop. How about that? Better? Okay, good. So, as I was saying, I'm excited to be here because many people have had an experience with Salvia Divinorum and it was bizarre and frightening and they weren't too sure what happened and they never really want to repeat it again. And I'm here to tell you that does not have to be the case. So I've been working with Salvia Divinorum for the past 10 years. And over my 10 years of working with Salvia Divinorum, I've come to learn that it has extremely powerful therapeutic healing potential. And what I do now is I actually work as a Salvia guide, and I provide therapeutic facilitation for people on guided Salvia journeys. I'm going to give a little bit of a background about Salvia. I also recently was part of Johns Hopkins' study on Salvia Divinorum. They gave me a very strong dose of pure vaporized salvinorin A while I was in an MRI machine, and that was quite a trip. I'm going to talk about the traditional versus the recreational use of salvia. We can think about it like a pendulum. We have two, is it going now? Thank you. I'm going to talk about the traditional versus the recreational use of Salvia Divinorum. Seems like there's a dichotomy between two worlds. I'm also going to talk about the emerging therapeutic use of salvia. Barely anyone is using it as a therapeutic tool, but there are a few people who are starting to see its potential benefits. I'm going to introduce you to a new tool for exploring Salvia Divinorum. And if we have some time at the end, I'm going to go through some questions and answers. So I would like to introduce you to Salvia Divinorum herself. This is the plant that I am busy cultivating. She makes a wonderful house plant. I just think she's absolutely beautiful. And she looks familiar because she is actually a part of the Labayate family. So she's a type of sage. She originates from the Sierra Mazatec mountain ranges in Oaxaca, Mexico. And the traditional shamanic use of Salvia Divinorum is for both the discovery and the cure of illness. What I mean by that is if someone is sick, they chew the fresh salvia leaves, and first salvia identifies in the patient's body where the illness is, and once it's identified, she then goes ahead and heals it. And there has been a growing interest in Western medical researchers for the potential therapeutic benefits of salvia. There's an active compound in salvia called salvinorin A, and it's a kappa opioid receptor agonist, which is extremely effective at treating pain, addiction, depression, and there's also a lot of terpenes in salvia, which make it very good for inflammation. So as we see here, we have this pendulum of experience. There you go. We have this pendulum of experience. On the one side, we have the traditional use of salvia, and then the other side, we have the recreational use. And I put recreational use in quotation marks because most people don't find it very fun. The traditional route of administration is by making what's called a quid. So what people do is they take some fresh salvia leaves and they roll them up into what kind of looks like a big leafy cigar, and then they chew on the cigar for the amount of time that they want to have their journey. This is traditionally the intensity over time scale of what a chewed salvia session is like. The leaves hit you, or the effects start to hit you within about 10 to 15 minutes. About 30 minutes to 40 minutes, you start to peak. You stay at that peak for maybe 30 minutes to an hour. You can stay at the peak as long as you just keep putting more leaves in your mouth. And then you slowly come to a gentle decline, which is wonderful, but there are some challenges with this. For one thing, for most of us, it's difficult to find fresh salvia leaves. And you need to chew a lot of leaves, so it's very cumbersome. They usually start with 16 pairs of leaves, so they use 32 leaves. The reason why they count them off in pairs is because they think that if you count them off individually or you have an odd number of leaves, the masculine won't find the feminine energy and vice versa. So if you want to have a holistic, full embodied healing ceremony, you need both the male and the female aspects present. But the leaves can be, twice the size of your hand sometimes. So it's kind of like putting a whole bag of spinach in your mouth. and then just sitting with it in there for the whole time. And the reason why you have to have the leaves in your mouth the entire time is because salvinorin A isn't active in the stomach. So salvinorin A is only active through the buccal mucosa membranes in your cheek. It is also generally a subtle experience. One thing I will say about salvia that makes it very unique is there is something called reverse tolerance. So you need less salvia over time. Compare that to other opioids or alcohol or anything like that. You need more over time. So the first time you do a chewed salvia experience, it's kind of subtle. The next time you do it, you need less leaves. Now, if I do a chewed salvia experience, because I have a lot of reverse tolerance, I need much less leaves to get as strong of an effect. Now, there's the common recreational route of administration, and that is by smoking a large bowl of concentrated extract. What salvia extract is they'll take a lot of plain leaf, and they'll do, usually using acetone, they'll extract the pure salvinorin A out of the leaf, and then they'll reconcentrate that back on a small amount of leaf. So you can, and it kind of looks like fish food, they're little flakes. So you can smoke these little flakes, and smoking just a tiny pinch is the equivalent to smoking a big old honking bowl of salvia. Now, most people, salvia is legal in many places, so you can buy it from a local head shop, and you load a big fat bowl of the salvia extract, and you take a big hit, and usually people experience something that seems similar to that. We have our poor character. He's there on the couch with his water pipe, and before he knows it, his entire universe has unraveled, and he's just being shot into hyperspace, and even the mouse around him is confused by what's going on because the shift was so gradual, so intense. Another thing that might happen is something akin to this. It's very common for you to turn into an animate object, or you might turn into the object that you're sitting on. So if you're sitting on a chair and you have a strong dose of salvia, you become the chair. And then once you're the chair, you become the floorboards, and you think, oh my God, I thought I was a human, but I've actually been a floorboard all this time. And it's jarring and can be quite scary. And so this is the dose curve of a salvia smoked trip. We look at the time scale. The previous graph, we had minutes on the bottom, and it went to 120 minutes. Here we have 12 minutes. So you go from 0 to 10 in about 30 seconds. And you stay at this very, very strong peak for a few minutes, and then you rapidly come back down. And honestly, the most common phrase that people utter after they're done smoking a large salvia extract was, "What the fuck?" And it's extremely common because they just don't know what happened. It was too much too soon. So these are some of the recreational challenges. It can be terrifying. It can be extremely dissociative. It can be seemingly meaningless. Initial salvia journeys are just a cacophony of experience. You think, what the heck just happened? It doesn't make any sense at all. And even if you got some valuable lessons from it, it can still be difficult to integrate because it was just too much. So I'd like to tell you a story of how I accidentally found out that salvia could be an extremely healing plant. This was back in 2012. I got strep throat. And as anyone does when they get strep throat in this Western world, I went to the doctor and he put me on a course of antibiotics. And the sore throat kind of went away, but it didn't fully go away. What I was left with was redness and rawness in my throat, and I had these, especially on this side of my neck, some very large swollen lymph nodes. So I went back to the doctor and I was like, hey, antibiotics didn't work. He was like, all right, let's put you on some stronger antibiotics. He put me on some stronger antibiotics, still didn't go away. This happened 3 times. They eventually put me on something called Z-Pax, which is like an intense 5-day antibiotic treatment, and that didn't work. It just felt like I always had like acid reflux and a very sore throat, and it hurt to talk and it hurt to swallow. So then I thought maybe it's my diet. Maybe my system's too acidic or something like that. And so I cut out all coffee, I cut out all alcohol, I stopped smoking cannabis because I thought maybe the smoke was irritating my throat. I cut out all sugar, red meat, I exercised a lot, I essentially went vegan, I got lots of sleep, did everything I needed to do, but this thing just still stayed there. So I go back to the doctors. And they're like, well, you obviously have a recurring infection that's not going away, so the only thing we can suggest for you to do is to have your tonsils removed. And I was like, I'd rather not do that, so I was kind of delaying that and putting that off. It was one random evening I was at home, and I thought, I haven't done salvia in a while. Let me go ahead and do it. I'd already started to cultivate a relationship with salvia to where I'd learned that I could use the plant to actually commune with different entities. If you meditate before smoking salvia, it changes the experience a lot. And I'd gotten to a point where I'd started to meet different spirit entities and I could communicate with them. And I thought, well, let me just, for kicks and giggles, let me just smoke some salvia. So what I did is I used some of the extract and I loaded it in the pipe and I smoked it. And immediately I could tell that there was something different about this particular time. Usually when I'd smoked salvia, there was this energy that would radiate all from out my body, or I'd feel these forces pulling and pushing on me. But this time what I felt was in the base of my feet, there was this strong vibration that started to happen. And it felt like a very intense tingling sensation. And the tingles, feeling like little ants, ran up my feet and up my legs, and it all, with a lot of purpose and a lot of direction, went straight to where the swollen lymph node was in my neck. And it was just like, whoop, all this energy congregated right there. And now, previously to smoking salvia, I'd been pushing on this lymph node ad nauseum for all the time, just jabbing it. Kind of like when you have a sore tooth as well, you can't stop poking it with your tongue. But this time, with the energy there, my hand automatically picked itself up, and I thought, oh, well, I don't know why I didn't think about this sooner. Let me just heal myself. And so I picked up my hand, duh, right? So I picked up my hand and I pressed on this swollen lymph node and I rubbed it in a circle. And as soon as I rubbed it, I felt it go and split in two. And there were 2 nodules. And then I rubbed it again and it split into 4. And I rubbed it again, it split into 8, 16, 32. Every second that I rubbed it, it's split in half and half and half, like a cell dividing. Until it got to a point where it was just about the size of little grains of sand. And then I did that one more time, and when it got to a point where I couldn't feel anything anymore, the energy that had initially shot up my body and went to my throat went and went across the rest of my body again. I closed my eyes, I took like a 5-minute meditation. Again, all of this seemed completely normal at the time. And then I came to, and I was like, what the hell? And I felt my throat, and the swollen lymph node was still gone. And it remained gone, and it hasn't come back since. And it was that experience that got me thinking, what just happened? Why don't people know about this? Why didn't the doctors tell me to smoke salvia? And so that's when I started doing some research into it, and I didn't know that salvia was actually a shamanic tool used in Oaxaca specifically for the purpose of healing. I had no idea. So it's not as if I was going out there looking for something. It was brought to me. So that really got me started on my path. And it's forced me or guided me to go and find this middle ground, because again, there's challenges for the traditional use. Recreational use is difficult for people, so what's in the middle? Something has to be in the middle. Yes, I can.
Turn the mic a little bit towards, just put it right in front of your face, maybe.
Okay.
Here, just,
Like that? All right. Thank you. Okay. So, searching for this middle ground, I have started to do guided salvia therapy sessions. And what I'd like to do is give you some talk a little bit about my method that's both accessible and therapeutic. So the first thing I'll say to anyone doing salvia is to always have a mature sitter. If you want to find out how not to guide, it's look at anyone smoking salvia on YouTube with their friends, and then you'll see how not to be a good sitter. So a mature sitter, what the mature sitter needs to do is they need to sit down, be quiet, don't say anything. The main job for them is to just make sure that you don't get up and start walking around and hurt yourself. And also, if you do get scared and you think you're going to be stuck in the salvia realm forever, let them know that they should let you know, hey, you smoked some salvia and it'll be over soon. The set and setting is to have undisturbed still silence and darkness. You really want to be able to not have any disturbing noise around you, because your hearing gets a lot more sensitive with salvia. And darkness, light becomes kind of intrusive as well. you want to meditate and set an intention before ingesting salvia. I'll stress meditation more than setting the intention, because sometimes you cannot be too fully sure what your intention is, but then when you're in salvia space, your intention can be made very clear to you very pragmatically. But meditating beforehand makes a big difference. And it can be a simple meditation, something as simple as 10 slow, deep breaths. Now, the next point is key, and I should have had this in capital letters, because the main thing that you need to do is use small, consistent incremental smoked doses of salvia. Don't load a big bowl and smoke a large bowl of extract. Load a bowl, smoke it, see what happens. Load a bowl, smoke it, see what happens. Slowly, incrementally step yourself with baby steps into the salvia space. And while you're doing that, you need to continuously track the experience, both with respect and curiosity. Don't try and make anything particular happen, just see what's happening as it unfolds. And then as that's unfolding, what I like to do with my clients is I like to discuss and process and integrate the experience while it's happening, and then again after it's happening. So we had this dichotomy between the two curves. We had this really slow, gentle curve, and we had this big spike. But a smoked incremental dose experience looks more like this. So you can start and have the first little smoked bowl, and it can take you up to about a level of 1 or 2 of intensity. And then you can have a little bit more, and it takes you a little bit deeper into it. Now, one thing that's absolutely fascinating about salvia is the effects are extremely different at level 0 versus level 10. At the initial effects, what happens is you get a quieting of the mind. You have an increased focus on your breath. By that, I mean that your breathing just becomes a lot louder in your head, and it becomes more pleasurable to be focusing on your breath. You feel a really remarkably wonderful physical relaxation at these lower levels. It feels as if someone explained it to me sometime as if their muscles were letting go of their skeleton. There was just like a deep sinking in. And you can also have a feeling of physical tingles all over your body. Those physical tingles are the energy of salvia starting to work. And when those start to happen, that's when you don't need to figure it out and you don't have to do anything with it. Just be like, oh, I'm feeling some tingles over here, and be curious and see where it wants to lead. At a deeper stage, you can go to a state of very deep meditation. If you've ever sat and meditated for a long time and gotten to a very deep state of meditation, this is the place that salvia can take you to very easily and very quickly. It gives you an extreme clarity of thought. What I mean by clarity of thought is all the background chitter-chatter voices that are always chattering in your head become completely silent, as if they were never there, and you're only left with a few thoughts. And the few thoughts that you're left with are usually some key things that you need to be focusing on in your life. Salvia is very pragmatic. You can come to it with pragmatic questions and get pragmatic answers right back. Now, this is when you start to feel what's called salvia gravity. You feel these forces pulling on you and pushing on you. And one thing I will say is if you slowly stair-step yourself into salvia, into these middle realms, it's not jarring anymore. I like to think about it like somatic priming. Because you've started at low doses and gone your way into higher doses, by the time you start to feel these seemingly outside forces pulling and pushing on your body, it's manageable and it's actually quite pleasant. You have very spontaneous memories can come up, usually from childhood, and there's strong physical energy shifts. The energy shifts are in the same realm as, or I guess I'll say if anyone here is a Reiki master or had Reiki done on them, or anyone is an energetic healer, this is the energy realm that salvia deals with. Now, things get really interesting at the higher doses as well. One can visit this land that people refer to as Salvia land. It is a place that people visit, and even though if you've read nothing about salvia, there are remarkable themes and similarities that come up. It's a simple village of simple times. There's a lot of themes. There's schoolhouses, there's school teachers, there's children running around, there's laborers. It's a village of simple times, and it feels very real when you're there. And there's entities that are there as well that you can commune with. When you speak with these entities, when you get to these higher stages, your language abilities go away and your thought becomes symbolic and emotional. And you can communicate with these entities using symbolism and emotion. That's why it's very difficult to actually bring back words from a visit to Salvia land, because you got the point loud and clear, but there are no words that are associated with it. There's many stories I could tell about a time that I was in Salvia land, but there's this one particular time that sticks out. I was standing there and I had arrived in Salvia land, and these entities, two little spirit girls, ran up to me and they were excited and they said, "Oh, you're back. What was it like? What was it like?" And what they meant was, what was it like when you were alive on Earth? And people have referred to Salvia as the land of the dead. It's the place that one's souls go and always are. There can be radical shifts in your consciousness, physical boundary dissolution, so you no longer have a body and you become the chair, the room, the sky, the world. You can become as big as the energy fields from within you radiate out. And again, you can become inanimate. Again, if you slowly work your way into Salvia space, this isn't very scary. And then if you keep going into Salvia space, then it becomes really wild because you can transcend time and space, and you come to the realization that everything is an illusion or a computer simulation. And saying transcending time and space might not be the best way to say it, because when I've been taken to these places in Salvia, I didn't transcend time and space. I got taken to a time before time and space even existed. And so it was hard to transcend something if it never really existed in the first place. Now, one of the challenges that I ran into when I was busy learning how to work with this plant, especially because I was doing it without a sitter, because I learned that I was okay smoking salvia on my own because I knew the effects for me personally, but it was difficult to load a bowl and smoke it, and then load another bowl and smoke it, and load another bowl and smoke it, because the further you're going to salvia land, the more difficult it is to do this. So what I've come up with, I invented and I've designed a Salvia pipe. It is, thank you. It is something that is specifically for the conscious, intentional exploration of salvia. It is, as you can see, a many-bowled, 5-bowled water pipe, and you can load it with a little bit of salvia, and you can smoke it and see what happens, and then you can go into the next bowl and smoke it and see what happens. And then if you don't want to go deeper, let's say you get to level 5 of your salvia experience, you can stop right there. You don't have to smoke the rest of the bowls. Or if you want to proceed a little bit deeper, you can go a little bit deeper. Me personally, I found that I like to stop at around level 5 or 6 in the intensity, because that's where I get the most healing benefits and pragmatic insights for my life. So it is available at salviapipe.com if you're interested. And there might be time for a few questions, but I see I have a couple more minutes. So there's one thing, 2 more minutes. Okay, one thing I quickly want to show you guys, what I think is really cool, is I want to talk about some salvia morphology. So we have the symbolism of a circle. So a circle is essentially a symbol for the soul, or heaven, or God, or the divine. It's a symbol of protection against evil spirits and demons. And then we have the symbolism of a square. The symbolism of a square is the physical body, the earth, the 4 cardinal points, the 4 seasons, the 4 directions, anything that is this reality. There is also the symbolism of a circle inscribed inside of a square. And it's a Kabbalah symbol for the spark of divine laying hidden within matter. If you see it in Chinese art, it symbolizes the union between heaven and earth. And it is also a symbol for the soul or divine within our bodies. So this is a very powerful symbol. And if we take a look at the cross-section of a salvia stem, we see right here a circle neatly inscribed inside of a square. Thank you. Okay, we don't have time for questions, but I will say please reach out to me. My email address is right there. My website's right there. Come and talk to me. I'm very happy to talk about this till we're all blue in the face. Thank you. I am, yeah.